It is recording. Okay, so what were we talking about? We were talking about VS Code and dev containers.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so VS Code it wasn't like a new idea to do development inside of a Docker container, but they added this feature called dev containers, and they added all this like nice tooling around it so that you could just like open a project and it's your Python project, and then your code is running inside of a Python container. If you open a project and it's a Go container, or it's a Go project, then it opens up in a Go container and stuff like that. So what they didn't invent developing containers. What they did do was build a standard set of configs that tell your IDE how you want to develop in the container. And so now there's this huge ecosystem of configs out there that you can just flip on and be like, yeah, I want a development container that has Node.js installed and it has all these tools that I like, and yada yada yada. You just tick a bunch of boxes, and somebody out there's already like figured out how to do that, so you don't have to do it yourself. And that's what that dev containers, if you go to whatever it was, dev containers.dev or something. I think it was containers.dev. Containers.dev. Yeah. So containers.dev is Google or is Microsoft saying, like, we're going to take this idea that we like spent time building into VS Code and like pull it out and make it a standalone thing. And they did this already for something else called a language server, I think. I don't know for sure that this was VS Code first, but they had this idea that like you could plug in something to give you suggestions about the code you're editing into your code editor, as opposed to like having it be built into the editor. You can have it as a separate server. I think I'm talking kind of out of my ass because I don't really understand how this works because I never use it. But anyway, that has become a standard, and now that it's a standard, you can get, code highlighting and suggestions in other editors that aren't VS Code. And so this is the same as that. They're just like, dev containers is a good idea. We're going to make it into a standard. We're going to give it to the community. We're going to let people build it into whatever. So I actually was looking at this, and I want to record a screencast of setting up dev containers using like the new tooling, just to like get my head around that, and then we'll have like a development environment we can use where if you're using Vim, you can use with Vim. If you're using VS Code, you can use VS Code, and it'll work the same way. Okay. I'll get Google for a second. Get out of all this nonsense. Okay, so we're gonna keep playing with Python. Did anybody try the homework?
I didn't see that there was any. I sort of invented my own, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
What did you put for?
I opened a GitHub issue and I put it in the chat. Dismiss. All right. So yeah, they're in the bootcamp repo. There is a GitHub issue. Yeah, called Jam Session Homework, issue number 7. You see it? Put this up here. So this was the. So I can't remember who it was. Somebody suggested that maybe it was Sean. I don't know. They wanted something more to do. So I suggested this, which we can do now, just as like an exercise. I think we left it here. Click the. Just click there. That's interesting. Oh, cool. Okay, so does this make sense?
Yeah, I'm just reading it right now.
Okay. This is some pretty ancient web technology. Like.
Oh yeah.
This is early days. I remember reading about this back in the 90s. Basically, nothing does authentication like this anymore.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Here, I'll throw the link in the Slack channel so you don't have to read it through my screen. Right. So, what did we say? Implement a function which accepts the HTTP authorization. Okay, so the reason I said this right here, let's just switch right back to code and we'll start screwing around with breakpoints and stuff. Okay. Yeah, actually, that's a fine place for a breakpoint right there. And then the 8080. Okay, there's my breakpoint. So here are all of the things in my what's that? Not very pretty at all, isn't it? There we go. So I've got these HTTP headers. And since I didn't send a password, I don't have an HTTP authorization header. So let's try that again. Oops. Okay, so now, well, let's see. Now I have one called HTTP authorization. So this wasn't here before. The reason it's here now is because curl, when I put in my username and password like this, it injects a request header. So you can see when I add -vdv makes it very verbose. And you can see these are the headers that it sends. The little right arrow means these are request headers, and then when the response comes back, it would be a left arrow. It means it's a response header. And so this is the base64 encoded username and password that I just sent. So if we want to see, see that come back, there it is. So that is in this value now. So I have what I need to start thinking about how to implement a function to tell whether or not a user is allowed or not allowed. So let's implement a function. Def is authorized. Now, I really like to, for functions like this that are going to check something and return true or false, I like to always name them is something. Because that way when you, if I just call this function authorized and then, put in, or something like that, this function might authorize the auth header or something like that. Like it's less obvious what this does. This is like another one of those make it as obvious as possible to the person who has to read this next, because almost certainly the person who has to read this next is fucking you 6 months from now, and you'll have forgotten about it. And then what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to say user authorized equals is authorized. And I'm going to pass in Byron. And here, instead of doing this, so I could do, what's the name of that header? Authorization. Okay, I could do this, right? Now the problem is, there's two syntaxes for accessing a dictionary item, right? You can put it in like this, and you get the value back, or you can do this. You can use this get method. And in this instance, I'm going to use the get method instead of the square brackets notation for a specific reason, which is that if you use the square brackets notation on a thing that's not in the dictionary, you get an exception. It raises a key error. But if you do environ.get on a thing that's not in the dictionary, you just get none back. You don't get an error. So I don't know whether or not the user is going to send a username and password in any given request, so I can't assume that the header is going to be there. So I want to degrade gracefully if it's not there. So instead of doing this, what I'm going to do is environ.get instead of the square brackets notation. And what that means is that the first thing I should do up here is check if I actually got anything. So if I didn't get an auth header, well, this user is not authorized. Automatically return false. But if I did get an auth header, now I need to do something with it. Let's put a breakpoint in here, and then we can think about what we're going to do with it. So get out of here. Start this up again. Send a request. Oops. And we got a horrible error. What doesn't it like?
You spelled breakpoint wrong.
I spelled breakpoint wrong. Listen, I will take a breakpoint anytime I want to. Okay, there we go. Now we're in a breakpoint. And we're inside of our isAuthorized function, and the auth header is not none. We know it has something in it. So, okay, so let's do this the most naive possible way, and then we'll talk about like ways to make it better. So, I'm going to do this. Splits the string based on anything inside of it. I could have split on the letter C if I wanted to, and it would split it like that. But instead I'm going to split on the space because I know an authorization header always has the word basic followed by the value. So if I get the right thing, then this will work. And so to get access to just the base64 component, I'm going to use that -1 trick again we talked about last time, where I'm saying, so this is a list. Do this one more time. This is a list. Type of this thing is a list, and to access the last element of a list, you can do square bracket -1 notation. So, okay. I've got a little bit of code here that does this. But I'm going to say encoded username password equals this thing like that. So now I've got that base64 encoded data into a variable. Now, I can't remember how to base64 decode in Python. I can't. It's like there's a standard library for it. I can't remember what it's called. It's in something. Is it just called base64? Are you serious? All right. Well, anyway. Oh yeah, it's just called base64. Okay. And base64 actually has a whole bunch of stuff in it that I don't need. Base64, base blah, 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 blah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do from base64 imports. So if I do import base64, I get base64 and I get all this other stuff that comes with it. But I don't need all that other stuff. I just need this one function right here, base64 decode. So I can use that function because I've imported this whole library. I could use it by saying base64, the thing I imported, dot b64 decode. That's the method that I want, b64 decode, and then pass in auth header dot split -1. Okay, that works. But what I'm going to do over in my code is instead of importing the whole base64 library, I'm going to use this from import statement. Again, I'm going to say from base64 import b64 decode, just the thing that I need, and leave the rest of it out. So now I've got base64 decode. So I've got encoded username and password is there. So now I'm gonna go decoded username password equals base64 decode encoded username password see how this looks. Getting there. Send a request. Oh, got an error. What did I do wrong? Encoded. Encoded. I spelled it wrong again because I can't spell words. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now decoded username password. Okay, now that's interesting. Notice that B up front. That tells me that this is not a string. This is binary data. Double check that by running type on it. Yeah, this is bytes. So I need to turn this into a string before I can do a string comparison on it. Oh, that's interesting. How do I do that? Dot encode. No. How do I do this? Please don't get this so complicated. Bytes to string. Python, tell me. How do I do it? Convert bytes to string. Oh, it is decode. Okay. Wait, really? Dot decode. UTF-8? Oh my god. Okay, alright, great. That's all it takes. UTF-8. Alright, so I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna stick this on the end here. So remember I talked about this last time too, like you end up doing these like compound statements that do a bunch of stuff in one line just to make your life a little easier. So I know this first function call is going to return bytes, and then I can just add dot decode at the end of it and call a method on those bytes. So let's get out of here. Time. Coded username password. Okay, so now I've got a string. So great. So now, and I said before, we're going to use like where was it? Jam session homework. A hard-coded username and password. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say if decoded username password equals got lost secret. There we go. Okay, so now, and then I'll just see. Okay, so then what we'll go do down here is that I'll say that the slash whatever endpoint we'll make the whatever endpoint password protected. So we'll say if user authorized, then do that, else let's see here. Now here's a okay, this is mostly done. We're still a little ways to go here, but let's see how this looks. So we'll run this thing. Right, and I gotta hit the whatever endpoint to trigger the. Okay, we got an error occurred. Body dot encode. Okay. Unauthorized. Okay, great. Now, the thing about this is returned in HTTP 200, which is supposed to be okay, but this is obviously not okay because I'm not authorized. So what I want to send instead is an HTTP 401, which means that we got to find the spot where we're setting the HTTP response code and set that over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say status code. And then that means everywhere else now I I need to set status code like that. Okay, so now, regardless of whatever's happening, we're setting the status code. So status. So I just want to reiterate, I know this many times, but this is intentionally bad. Okay. How's that look? Nice. Okay, 401 unauthorized. I get the word unauthorized. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get rid of that unsightly percent sign by adding a new line. There we go. Okay, so now if I add the right username and password, what did I say it was? No loss. Nice. Now I get a 200. Okay. Okay. This is pretty good. But it makes some assumptions. So there's more than one way to put this authorization header in the request. I can take this out, and you can actually just pass -h to curl and just say anything equals stuff or whatever. And when you hit enter, it will just put any header you want into the request. So I can add this authorization header manually. Oops. Wow, I didn't angle that up. So if I do this, yeah, we get a 500 error. Because my code is bad. So if I look at the exception, yada, yada, yada. Invalid base 64, number of characters 9 cannot be blah, 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 blah. There we go. Yeah, here we go. This is the failing line right here. You can see the zeros under it. So what it's saying is, you tried to base 64 decode something that is not base 64 encoded. And the reason it's not base 64 encoded is because I just wrote, oh shit here. So, let's see. How can we make this better? Let's go back to our code, or to our authorization function. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a breakpoint here. Okay. So now, encoded username, password. That's interesting. Okay, so auth header. So this is all I get from the request. It doesn't have that basic. Remember before we assumed that it has basic in there, but it doesn't. So we kind of don't want this code to execute unless it actually is a basic auth header. So it would make sense, I think, to put a little, before we even try this, do if encoded username password starts with basic. Then try doing this. And actually, this is really what an authorization function should look like. It should have lots of things that check stuff and return false. Is there anything wrong with this? Say no. Is there anything wrong with this? Say no. Is there anything wrong with anything else? Keep saying no. Until you get to the very, very end and you go, does it actually look right after this point? Now I'll say yes. Most of authorization is telling people to fuck off. I still got an exception. It's because I can't type words. Oh, right. Right. Okay, that's better. So now I got an HTTP 401 unauthorized because I did not include the word basic in my spoof header, the fake header that I sent when I tried to pretend, but I can still do that. I can just put it like this and pass in some garbage. and I hit my breakpoint. And so because I had the word basic at the front, so now this thing that is not base 64 is going to try to be base 64 encoded. And if I let that happen, now I'm going to get this error. So,
Hey, go back to your code just for a minute.
yeah.
I'm doing something wrong because I'm not actually hitting my breakpoint in my is auth.
You want to share
I'm
your
not
screen?
sure. I can do. There's that guy. I just assume I missed something while you were rocking and rolling there. So I added user auth
Yeah.
to call is auth environ.get HTTP authorization.
Yeah.
Added the function.
Yeah.
I have the if auth header is none, which is fine, return false. And then I never hit this breakpoint.
Can you show me your curl statement?
No, because it's in a totally different window. But it's just curl-v http / username password at localhost 8080.
Can you paste the curl with all the debug output into Slack?
Yeah. Heads up, I am using Windows curl.
Oh, well, that's fine. My suspicion is that line 33 is returning, like that environ.get is returning none. And so your line 25 check is just saying, oh, yeah, there's nothing here, and then returning false.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, look at your...
I mean, I guess the easy way to troubleshoot that is move the breakpoint up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. Do that.
Okay, at least I hit a breakpoint.
Okay. So, what does auth header contain?
Oh, can I just print it?
Yeah, but it's none. So that's why.
Why is it none?
So it's none because based on what I see in your curl output, it doesn't look like Windows curl is sending the authorization header.
That tracks.
Let's see here.
Okay, hold on. Easy way.
Curl basic auth. Oh. Try -u. Maybe I don't think it likes that syntax of putting it in the URL like that. But you can do curl-u and then pass in a username :password.
-u space.
-u space username :password and then the URL.
Nope. Got real mad about that. Cannot process because the parameter name u is ambiguous. Possible matches include use basic printing, URI, use default credentials, or user agent.
Sounds like you need to install real curl.
Yeah, well, hold on. If that's the case, let's try. I don't know if that level of networking is. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Debian is really cool in a lot of ways, but the fact that nothing is pre-installed.
Yeah. I mean, you know, lean is
That,
good.
no, dude, it's curl. Like it might as well be included in every Linux ever conceived. Failed to connect, couldn't connect to server, which is probably because the server's not. No, the server is running, so that does not work.
Screen. There you go. There's your authorization header.
So now I got to control C that and screen dash R sudo screen dash R. Hey, look.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Nice.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
All right, well, at least I know my code was fine.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to have to figure out a better way to do this.
Y'all ever used Vagrant?
No. I've heard it.
It's a good tool. If we go down this path, we're going to spend the rest of the day talking about Vagrant. Honestly, I would say maybe don't sweat it too hard because I think within a week or two, we're going to be developing, we're all going to be developing inside of something else pretty soon.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to try and get us set up on Google Codespace or GitHub Codespaces, which is kind of like VS Code in the cloud. And then a lot of shit will go away. We'll have to run Windows or Windows specific Linux or whatever. So I'm gonna finish this real quick and then we'll move on to whatever.
Carry on.
So right. So I was getting this exception here, binascii.error. So I need to wrap this in a try except block, and then I should be good. Where does that come from? No. Import binascii. There it is. Okay. So it raises an exception, a very specific exception that I have to import. So if I'm going to catch this exception, I have to import it from the library that raises it. So, yeah, I'm going to do that. So now I'll say try doing this thing, and then accept binascii.error. Like that. That's a little better. Let's see. Okay, we're in. We're curling. Hey, okay, nice. No exceptions. Okay. I'm going to paste this into chat, and then we can move on and stop playing around with toys and start playing with something real. Alright. So there's the slightly more finished version. And I'll throw this in the Git repo with the next notes and stuff later. And how do you feel about this? Does this make sense?
Yep.
Is there anything here that doesn't make sense? Maybe that's a better question.
I mean, other than the obvious, it doesn't make sense because there's got to be a smoother way to do this.
There's gotta be a
we've
better
done.
way.
Yeah.
You want to sell me a fucking slap chop now?
Oh, you're playing with your sticky.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a new subdirectory and go in there. So let's talk Flask. Flask has been around for quite a while. It used to be, I remember when it was the new hotness. Now it's pretty standard, and there's other new hotness, and we'll get to that later. But with Flask, because it's a third-party library that's not in the Python standard library, we got to do our virtual env. Because we're going to pip install some stuff. Specifically, we're going to pip install Flask. So it installs all the junk, and now pip freeze is the command that tells me which packages are currently installed in my environment.
Oh God, hold on, virtual. We did this once. I don't actually remember it.
Yeah, so here's the setup up here.
Yeah, okay, I got it. I'm in. No, I'm not in. Yeah, I'm in.
And then you can either do dot or the word source to activate your virtual environment.
Yeah. Right.
And then when it's active, it changes your prompt so you know that you're in the virtual environment.
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay. How you looking, Wayne?
Hold on. Something's happening. Okay. They created a virtual environment. So now I have to do that. Dot.
Yeah. Dot is just a shorthand for the word source. Which, if you look at this file, it's just a shell script.
Okay.
It's just a big dirty shell script. That's what the bin activated is. And it just uses a bunch of dirty shell magic to make your Python think that it's the only thing installed in the system right now.
So dot v / bin / activate.
Yeah, so the first part here is whatever you called it here.
Right.
And I just call mine .vm by convention, but you call it anything you want.
Yeah, and then you pip install Flask.
Yeah, and then I pip install Flask. And then the last thing you should do is pip freeze. And so this will show us all the things that these are all. So the nice thing about pip is that it installed Flask, but then Flask itself uses a whole bunch of libraries from around the internet. And so it also installed all the things that Flask depends on, which is all this stuff. And then by super convention, normally what you do is all of the things, all of the Python libraries that you rely on, they, well, that was stupid. They go into a file called requirements.txt. Now, what I'm explaining is very legacy strategy for managing your Python dependencies for like a complex Python project. Requirements.txt has sucked for a long time. There are better ways to do this. I don't know what the better ways are because I don't care because I'm not a software developer. This works fine for me. I'm sure there are better ways. I know there are better ways. I just haven't bothered trying to learn them because I don't care. It works good enough for putting shit into a Docker container and sending it on its way. So you know, presume basically tomorrow, if you pushed all this code into a Git repo and sent it to a colleague and said, clone this repo and start working on it, the first thing they would do is create a virtual environment and then do pip install all the things that are in this text file. That's how that works. Okay.
Okay, so you just answered the question that was in the back of my head of can you pass that text file to pip somehow?
Yeah. For some reason it's -r and not -f. I have no fucking idea why.
Because
So
fuck
can
you.
do
Though.
that with freeze requirements.txt.
Yeah. You can use that little pipe to populate requirements.txt. The bummer about this is that tomorrow you pip install something new, you have to remember to pip update requirements.txt. It's pretty common when you're iterating on a code base to just randomly install libraries. You start working on something and you're like, oh, maybe I can use this tool that I read about that seems cool. And then you start working with it and you're like, oh, actually, this is dog shit. This is not going to work at all. And so you just blow away your virtual environment, create it again from scratch, and then install only the requirements you need, and then just keep iterating and stuff. So it's nice to be able to just like trash that and bring it back. So what's the whole point of Flask? I mean, so if you just Google Flask Python, it'll take you to the Flask page. It was originally by this dude named Armin something or other. He's like Dutch or something. I don't know where he's from. German? Maybe he's German. If he ever sees this, he'll probably be livid. But anyway, sorry, Armin. just click on in the Flask user guide. Now it's part of this project called Palettes. It has a bunch of really good Python stuff. If you go to the Flask user guide, and there's a big list of stuff under the quick start section. Just click on a minimal application. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of Python.
Okay.
It looks like that. And you'll notice it doesn't have like a serve forever or anything like that. It doesn't have if name equals main or anything. Instead, the way you start to run this is there's okay. So if you activate the virtual environment, there's a command called Flask.
Okay, so why did you import Flask from Flask and not just import Flask?
I'll show you. So there's some basic Python stuff that we should cover at some point, and this has to do with like Python modules and packaging and stuff. But basically, I could import Flask if I wanted to. This has to do with like that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to answer that question with the pprint thing. So remember, I'm going to import os dot environ. Okay, and then pprint. Okay, so if I do, okay, import. Oops, it still doesn't look very pretty. What? I'm just gonna do this. Let's do this. I'm gonna make a dictionary. Let's see here. Oh, this will work. I don't know. Let's just try this. Okay, all right. Oop. Didn't I import? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm just like thinking on the fly here to answer this question. Okay, so if I just import Flask, let's go back to your question instead of trying to think of examples. If I just go back to Flask, you see how one's capitalized and this one's not?
Yep.
So Python packages can't be capitalized. The things inside Python packages can be capitalized, but Python packages themselves can't be capitalized.
Okay.
So that tells us, first of all, that these two things are different. This is a different object than this. So if I just import Flask and I look at what objects are available to me, there's all kinds of stuff in here, including capital F Flask. So if I didn't do from Flask import Flask, if I just did import Flask like this,
then you'd have to do Flask.Flask.
Then this exactly becomes Flask.Flask. Yeah, and it also means that I've imported like everything in the kitchen sink from Flask. I've got all this stuff that I don't necessarily need. In this case, all I need is the capital F Flask object. I don't need all the rest of that shit, so I can leave it out. That's why from Flask import Flask.
Gotcha.
And at some point we'll talk about like packaging classes and stuff like that. And you'll write your own version of this, and then it'll make more sense. Okay. So what's the command? What's it called? Is this gonna work? There we go. Okay. So this, because I called my script main.py, the app that I'm running is called main. So to launch this, I'll do Flask app main, and then the command run to start the local dev server. And if I curl
you don't.
localhost, Flask's default port is 5000. didn't get anything. It's probably because. Oh, that's interesting. What the actual fuck? 403 forbidden? Server AirTunes?
Are you running something else on port 5000?
I think I'm running something else. Maybe I'm more about that.
Mm-hmm. What's the run? Flask?
Oh, yeah.
Double whack.
And it's the name of whatever your Python file is. So I called mine main, so it's main. If you see in the... Here, I'm going to throw this in the chat. This is where I'm getting this from. The docs here. But if something else was already listing on port 5000, I should have got a port error, right?
Maybe. Sorry, pull your code one more time just for a second.
Sorry.
Happy for capital Flask thing.
Just click the link I just put in Slack there. It's all in there. It's all in that link.
Oh, fuck.
What in the actual fuck is happening here? Why is something listing on port 5000? That's 48,000. I can't remember how to...
I don't get mine too.
Sorry?
Mine not full. Okay, yeah, I get it. So it's running.
Yeah, did you get Hello World when you curled it?
The fuck?
Real fun, quick lesson. Don't call your code flask.py. That causes
yeah. So this is crucial.
Causes bigly problems.
Yeah, do not call your file flask.py.
So okay, so I just run that command in Ubuntu, right?
Yeah.
So how would I kill it now? Like I have to go in a different window to kill it?
You can, same as you did before, just go to your Chrome or whatever on your local machine.
Oh, okay.
It's still just a web server running. It's just on a different port.
Okay. So yep. Hello world.
Okay. So apparently this will let me know what is listening on port 5000.
I mean, Netstat will tell you what's listening on port 5000.
Not on a Mac.
What? You can't Netstat-L on a Mac?
Control Center. What the fuck is this? Control Center. Alright, well anyway, it seems I have some weird Mac shit to deal with on my port 5000, so
You got some spywares?
Set my port to 6000.
Sure.
I don't understand how the fuck it could possibly have started listening if there was something else already listening on port 5000. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
Mac? I mean, you can't run Netstat-L, so...
Yeah, it's shit's whack. Okay, alright, so anyway, there I'm getting my thing, I'm gonna put...
Hold on, don't go too far away and want to hang up this.
Yeah, that's fine.
That is indeed a much cleaner way to do a basic web thing.
Now, yes, yeah. And so, what's happening here is there's a lot of magic in this line. There's a tremendous amount of magic in this line. And there's a considerable amount of magic in this line. And it's basically...
Yeah, the route is obvious. The route is the same as the routes we did. Now, my question, I guess. So you've got app equals Flask name.
Yeah.
Which tells it to find app, which makes sense. You've got your app.route. You could presumably add another app.route with another thing.
Yeah.
where or what tells it to call that hello world function? Or do we consider app.route like a class and hello world is a module of that class?
So in this case, app is the same thing that we um, it created in that other
Mhm.
script. Like that is basically
Right.
this
But
function.
in here, you are telling it to run, was it start underscore response?
Right.
I think is the
Yeah, we did all
trigger.
this
Right.
nonsense down here.
Right. Server equals makes certain like there's
Yeah.
something there that makes sense that this is what
Right.
called that block of code. You just have a def underneath where you've called app. So think of it like a module of a class then.
Yeah. So basically this. Well, here let's breakpoint this shit and take a look at it. Okay. So app. So first of all, app is an instance of the Flask class, and inside of it, see this here, WSGI app.
Yep.
This is what's called in Python. They call it a callable. It means it's a function or a method. We'll talk about what
Mhm.
methods are and stuff. But basically, this is the thing inside of Flask that is the interface to WSGI. So this is the Flask version of the function we wrote ourselves in the other module. And then in order to get this function to be called, the Flask command calls this thing for us. When we run that Flask command from the CLI, it calls this function for us, like sets it up, it starts it listening, and then it allows it to serve traffic. There's a less magical way to see this
Well,
happen.
hold on though.
Yeah.
Go back to your code then. So
Yeah.
I'm building towards my real question, I guess. So you do that app route, you've got your def hello world, and it returns a thing, and that's fine and dandy. But what if you needed a bunch of different functions to do what you were doing?
Yeah.
Like you've got a function there that's got to parse a file. You got a function there that
Right.
draws a dick on the screen, whatever it is. No, but like even underneath app. So like def hello world is like your main line. If you def another function, can you call it from hello world?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good. Actually, well, let's see. I think so. This may not work. Oops.
Well, can you call a function as a return?
There we go.
Okay, cool.
Um,
So then it knows the end of the code for that route by your next app statement happening, if there was more than one.
yeah. So this, there are languages and there are situations where, like, the order that you do stuff matters. But
Like the order has to matter. If you move that def other stuff out above the at app, there's no way it'll work.
no, it will work.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, that's just confusing then.
So okay, I want to. Let's see here. I want to do this without the magic of the Flask app. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, okay, here we go. Let's do this. So that Flask CLI kind of hides some stuff from us. So I can get rid of this and just do that. And that also just starts the process. So I don't know if this really answers your question very well. Are you still confused?
No, yeah, it's not that I'm confused. I'm just trying to like interpolate this into a bigger thing. So let's say you had a bunch of different routes.
Yeah.
So you've got app route slash, and you've got app.route slash Dick.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to show you a picture of Richard Dixon. How does this code, or how does Flask decipher
How does Flask
What?
decipher what?
which code to run?
Right. Okay. So the magic is in this app.run.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I didn't want to start with Flask. This is why I wanted to start with the basics and show you how you build up to this. So inside of Flask, it has this fancy routing system where you can describe quite complex URL structures. And then basically, Flask will do this big like if-then test on any incoming request, and it might look more like this. Or something like that. And then if your request is like, inside of the Flask magic, it's going to like pull this number out and assign it to a variable called user ID or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right, gotcha.
it has all this nice flexible stuff that's just
Okay,
slicker than what we did with our big if statement, basically.
So I'm real close to having the answer I want here then.
Okay.
So now take that def other stuff block
Yeah.
that you put above there,
Yeah.
cut that, and paste it right after that, or right in front of that return Nixon.jpg.
Here?
Yeah. And then get rid of the return Nixon JPEG. Run that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just get rid of this.
Yeah, sure.
Ooh.
Put whatever you want there.
Okay.
It still doesn't make any fucking sense.
What?
So what happens now if you go to /users? What do you get?
So it's two things are happening now.
Mm-hmm.
What we're saying is if you go to /users, invoke the other stuff function and return I think so. We're saying here is if you go to / invoke the hello world function, which in turns invokes the other stuff.
So
function.
it can call a function that's part of a totally different. See, I think where I'm getting confused. I'm considering these different web pages, and they aren't, I guess, technically.
They're not really. I mean, it's just Python code. Also, this is stupid Python code. Like no one would ever do this. You would never.
No. I get that nobody would ever do this. I just so like when I look at app.route /users, I consider that a block or a web page, and it's not really that.
No, it's not.
Just yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's goofy, but
it's a little goofy. But yeah, this is part of the reason why you look at something like Django or Flask or any of these big frameworks, and you see like it starts talking about like how to set up URL routing and stuff, and if you don't understand sort of what's happening at the bottom when the request like comes into Python, all this magic can like hide all of what's actually happening from you. So let's do this. Let's just look inside. I can't remember exactly how Flask works inside, but we'll just look inside. So, okay, so it has all this stuff inside here, including this. And this is like a custom thing that Flask has implemented. Flask is built on top of a library called WSGI, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, which I think is probably because Armin's Dutch or whatever.
No, Armin's German.
Is he?
That just confirmed it, yeah.
Yeah. What is this guy's? Armin Ronischer. Fuck. I'm just gonna nag this dude.
If he's not German, he speaks German.
He probably does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, he's
Zug-
from
Zug is German.
Austria. He's
Okay, so he speaks German.
He
Yeah,
definitely speaks German. Anyway, so WorkZug is a low-level HTTP server library that he built Flask on top of. So it implements this like magical map thing, but this is the thing that allows you to express complex things like an HTTP path and some HTTP verbs, and then map them to Python functions. So these are like things that your browser might do to a particular path.
but you can call a function from another WorkZug.
Right, but this is still just a function, so I could still just call this anywhere I wanted to. But that would make your code confusing and hard to read.
Right. And where I'm getting hung up is in the other Python thing I'm learning. I'm learning about classes and modules and that sort of thing, and how you can't necessarily call a module depending on how it's configured and blah blah blah.
So, okay, so well here, let's look at so all the things that are inside of app object. We've seen that one of them is app.route, which is this thing right here. And app.route is a special thing called a decorator. So if you are fiddling around with your Python reading or whatever, take a look at decorators. They're kind of subtle and complicated. It usually, with most people's introduction to decorators, is first you see them, then you use them, then you write your own. But basically it wraps a function with extra functionality. It adds functionality to a function. Yeah, I know. It's some meta-programming bullshit.
Yeah.
There are other ways to do this, though. We don't have to use the fancy decorator. So let's go Flask routing. How do you do... tutorial. There we go. Oh, it's all decorator based? Is there maybe there's some I thought there was some other way to do no. But there are some other interesting things we can do here. So let's see here. Let's do this. Once we enter our handler, so this is called the handler for this path, and once we get our that's interesting. Once we get inside here, we should have. Oh, I forgot to import something important. Okay, there's something, an extra bit of magic that Flask gives us, which is this request object. It's a magic object. All right, close this and start again. So now I'm inside my handler, and I have this request object. And this is all of the stuff that previously was in that environment variable. Flask has like unpacked that environment variable and built it into something much easier to work with, which is this request object. So I can see request dot headers. This should be in here somewhere. Yeah. So these are all the request headers. Now I don't have to screw around with environment variables and things like that. I can also let's see here. Request dot remote adder. It's the IP address of the person who made the request. What else we got in here? Request.args. Is there any args on here? No. Request.content type. Anything interesting? No, there's nothing interesting in there. But if I change my curl command, it like pulls all the stuff out of the request and just makes it accessible in sort of a nice Pythonic way. So this is like, what if you wanted to build a WSGI server, but you also really knew a shit ton about Python and wanted to make it like just nicer to use as a developer? Flask is something. This is very much like something you would get out of that. So what I'm gonna do here is, what is it? Request.method. Return request.method. Let's try that. So if I do just a regular curl, it says that I was doing get, and if I do a post instead, is it not dash x? There we go. Well, that's interesting. Oh, I guess it doesn't allow a post. But allow head. Oh, it's dash I. I know how to work curl. There we go. Okay. That makes sense because head doesn't actually return a body. What was the other one? Get, head, and I can't remember. Can I not do something else? Put?
Yeah, put. You should be able to do put.
Method's not allowed. Okay. So I have to allow other methods. The way to do that is to do this. I think it's just methods equals. I think that's the way to do that. There we go. So just like a nicer way of interacting with this. And then what I can do is I can say if request.method equals get, then return the got. If request.method equals post, then let's look at the request. And then how do you kernel post file? Oh wait, here we go. So if I do curl dash d my data create. Okay, so it automatically does a post when you pass in data. I don't know why this keeps getting small. When you pass in a data argument. So did I not? There I did. Okay. So now I'm broken right here where I know I'm in a post request. The client has not just asked for a file, but is sending me data. Now I want to figure out what that data is. So it's going to be on the request object somewhere. It's probably request.data seems legit. Nope. Request.body. Is there a body? Request.files. No. Request.args. It's not args. Requests.value. There we go. It's in request.values. That's a weird place, right? Oh, it's form data. It's oh, okay. That's how you spend an HTTP form. I don't want to do that. Oh yeah, here we go. What if we do this? So if I do okay, so this is good JSON. If I do this, say dash d at thing.json. Okay, I think. Oops. So now curl is going to upload this JSON file, and if I do request.data, no, request.values, oops. It actually has request.json. Ah, great. Okay. So, request is doing, Flask is doing all this nice stuff, unpacking information about the request, but it's throwing this error here because I am trying to read JSON from the request that the curl sent, but curl didn't say that it was sending JSON. It just went ahead and sent JSON without specifying the content type. So you add this when you're sending JSON. No, did I forget to? JSON. There it is. So now, when my request actually contains the right header to announce itself as JSON, Flask will pull the JSON out of the payload and stick it into the .json object. I can still look at request. I think it's .body. Anyway, all of this stuff is yeah, there it is. Okay, so this is the payload of the request, and here it's been parsed into JSON format. So the first one is a string of bytes, and the second one is a dictionary that I can access the same as any other dictionary. So if you imagine you've got some JavaScript in your web app that allows the user to like enter their name into an input box and click log in, then that JavaScript might do an HTTP post containing a JSON blob that says like, username Rob or something like that. Then you've got some endpoint in here that's like something like this. That's where you would look in request.json, get the username, something like that, and start doing something useful with it. In fact, let's just do that. Let's see if this works. So, this, or edit my test file to say username Valerie. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Because I didn't hit the right endpoint. We added a new endpoint called /login, so I need to hit that. /login. Method not allowed because I didn't add my methods. Let's try this now. There we go. And if I change my payload, there, it changes. So this is like, it's not super clean, it's a lot cleaner than what we had. How are you feeling?
Yes,
There's
it
a
is.
lot, a lot of moving parts here.
Sorry, I agreed with you, but was on mute. So.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you start the server, it throws a big red thing that says something about development.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I've been keep doing this thing. I should show you this. And then let's just stop ever having to do this again. What are the other things. I'm gonna pass. Do not use run in a production setting. Debug flag will server. Oh, it is this debug. Okay, I don't need reload equals true. Okay. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now when I set debug to true, I get debugger is active and I get restarting with stat, which means that now if I go make a change and instead of saying welcome to the show, I do this, I didn't have to quit and restart this program. You see that? It just said restarting. Detected change.
That's cool.
And now when I curl localhost, so this is one of the beautiful things that comes with like a well-written framework is what they call hot reload or live reloading. Saves a lot of grief.
So, but why this is a development server and do not use it in production?
Right. Okay. We should talk about application servers. We hinted at this last week. We should talk about it this time. So the built-in server is okay for development, but it's not hardened against untrusted external users. For that, so that's okay. So getting back to this thing, so I added this app.run to kind of take away some of the magic, but I can still use the Flask command, whatever it was. Yeah, here we go. To launch this thing, and this is just an external program that's looking inside of main.py for the app func thing. You don't have to call it app, by the way. I can call it crap. And then when you that's interesting. How did it know? I thought I would have had to do this. Somehow it's smart enough to figure that out for itself. But anyway, the point I wanted to get across is that you can specify the file name, and then in this case it's the function, the instance of the Flask class. And the reason I wanted to show you that is that I'm going to install a real WSGI server. G-Unicorn is a Python version of what was originally a Ruby app server called Unicorn. Python has something called green threads, so G-Unicorn is the Python port of the Ruby Unicorn server using green threads. Green Unicorn, that's what it's stands for. Anyway, not that it really matters. And I can't remember how it works. G-Unicorn. How do I do stuff? It has a bazillion options. Options app module. I bet I can just do this. Main. Crap. There we go. Now this is listening on port 8000. Now how again? Once again, I already have something listening on port 8000. How the fuck does this even start? I don't understand. Oh, you know what it is?
Get a real computer, bro.
No. You know what it is? It's because I'm using Docker for Mac, and all the Docker containers, including the one that's now listening on port 8000, live inside of a VM. And then Docker for Mac does some weird magic shit where it takes, when I curl localhost on 8000, it connects to the VM. So, anyway, let's try 6000. Is that a thing? No. Dash P? No. You gotta be kidding.
I think you also have in your code a specified port.
No, actually this doesn't matter. So this, you can get rid of that. That only happens if I do if I run the
If you
code
run it that way.
directly.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Because I'm actually launching Unicorn. Unicorn is going to open up this file, look for this object, and then host it.
Gotcha.
Okay, Unicorn, listen, or how do you do this? Oh, dash B? Are you fucking kidding me? Dash B? Okay. There we go. Okay. You've been got it. So, G-Unicorn is hardened against evil external things. It doesn't have a built-in debugger. Like if I just do raise like this. Notice it doesn't have a built-in reloader. I have to cancel and reload it. It might have one if I ask for it, but I doubt it. /login. I get a very standard-looking 500 page that doesn't have like a backtrace or any sensitive information in here. This is like.
So running your Flask with Flask is literally for development, and then when it's ready, you can just run it with G-Unicorn and.
Yeah. So G-Unicorn is a popular one. There's another one out there called just WSGI. I'll throw some of these links in the chat here. And so these are things that are like, their job is to sit between the internet and your Python code and turn possibly very hostile TCP bytes into less hostile Python function calls. So usually while you're developing, you just use the Flask server, and then when it comes time to go to prod, you break a G-Unicorn or something like that. Okay. This feels like a good place to park it. My brain's getting a little fried. I'm going to... There's not much here, but I'll still put this in Slack as well, then I'll add it to the summary. There we go. Okay, and then let's just think about what could be interesting homework now. I'm gonna close this. Actually, I'll do that in a minute. But yeah, what could be interesting Flask things to do?
I mean, I'm going to convert spunk renums to Flask.
Yeah, you should definitely do that.
I definitely will do that.
Let's see here. Oh, actually, you know what might be interesting? Yeah. I'll tell you what. Here's what I want you to try and play with. We're gonna go create sharing this. Screen here. Okay, so all we've done so far really is just return like basic blobs of text. And we saw last week that like writing HTML in Python sucks. So Flask, basically every web framework out there, including Flask, has something called template rendering in it, which is a way to save your HTML that's mostly HTML with a few spots where Flask will plug in values for you.
Oh, okay, cool.
So Flask supports template renderer by Ginger 2. Throw the link to the docs is right there. Let's implement a /render endpoint, which and then I don't know, like, let's see here. So, actually, as a matter of fact, let's do this. This will be two interesting things to figure out here. So, try this. This is safely going to do. Okay, so you're gonna have to figure out a couple things. Yeah, so you see this bit here? This is a little bit about path routing, so I'm going to link to the path routing docs too. So this homework is a little bit about path routing and a little bit about HTML template rendering. And that'll give you a little bit of experience with just like the nicer ways of matching URLs that are better than a bunch of if blocks, and a little bit of experience with template rendering. And if you're not sure where to, like, if you're like me and you literally can't write a single line of HTML, oh, actually, you know what? I think there will be some in this rendering templates. Yeah. Here we go. So there's some example templates in here you can see as well. So I'll do that too. Boom. Okay. There's a lot of moving parts here. Stop. How are we feeling? Feel like we're moving in a good direction? Moving away from somewhere towards something? What's in your mind?
I like it.
Yeah. All right. Next week, I'm going to be in San Francisco for work. So we'll have to skip next week.
Week after that, I am in England for work.
Okay.
But don't skip on my behalf. Just record whatever you do.
Yeah, we'll do. And then, what I might do is, even if we don't get together next week, if y'all want to submit pull requests for the homework, then what I'll do is I'll do the review asynchronously, and I'll just do code reviews on your pull requests and just add suggestions and feedback on the pull requests, and then we'll merge them from there.
Sure.
Sick. All right. In that case, I declare it to be beer o'clock. Go forth.
Best thing I've heard all day.
All right, take it easy, guys.
Later.